All right, this is the Lament of Hope blog and podcast. I'm speaking today with Odessa Jorgensen. It's a blessing to be able to speak with her. She's a singer, songwriter, and violinist from California, and she's speaking to me today from Los Angeles. Odessa, thank you so much for taking the time for this.
Thank you for having me.
So to get started, ask kind of a fun question. What kind of animal do you think your personality is most like if you were an animal?
Ooh, that's a fun question. I would probably say a bird.
Why a bird?
Because I like to move around and I would love to fly.
Like fly in a kind of spiritual sense or more of just physically?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
What?
Yeah. Wait.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I physically and spiritually. Physically, I do like to travel a lot, and I like to fly and go places, and I can sit still and concentrate, but I feel like I have sometimes kind of a hummingbird energy, like going from here to there and tasting this and experiencing that. And I like to do that in my mind as well.
Have you traveled a lot?
I have, yeah.
What's been your favorite place so far?
Um, gosh. I don't think I have a favorite. I mean, I think I was thinking today a lot about Japan. I've been wanting to travel back there. When I was 15, I lived there for a few months working, and that was my first taste of travel and being abroad by myself. I was very young. And that was maybe the most special experience because it was, again, like my first time I was out of the country and being on my own and wandering the streets by myself and taking photos and just like experiencing who I am in a different culture and place and learning things about a place and myself, you know? Gosh, I love Norway, the fjords. It's a beautiful place. I went to Nicaragua over the summer with my sister for our cousin's wedding. And that place was just, I was very surprised. I don't know a lot about the place, but my dad, when I was growing up, his boss bought 12 acres in Nicaragua. And I remember all of us sitting down one night as a family and him showing us photos, and it was very rural, like country. I grew up in Northern California, and it was a very, when I was young, very like open landscape, and we had horses and animals and things. So, but I remember my dad showing us Nicaragua, and he said, look, it's like here, but there. And it was so beautiful and lush, obviously like tropical and animals everywhere. And so my sister and I got an opportunity to go, and it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen and waters I've ever swum in. So that was, yeah,
What
I'd
did
say
you
that.
like about the Japanese culture when you were there?
To be honest, I found the culture, it's very polite. They're very polite and meticulous, detail oriented. Everything runs very seamlessly. It's a very pleasant environment to be in. You know, no one really bothers each other, but I sort of had a little bit of a hard time with it because I'm from California, I'm a California girl. So it's like, you know, you smile and say hello on the street. That doesn't happen there, but I appreciated the simplicity and just the sort of like overall kind of quietness and just the way that people, there was room for everyone, you know, and everyone's mental spaces as you're walking around. You can definitely be in your own little world and with each other, which I think is, I liked. That was a part of it I liked.
Was your childhood, did you move around a lot in your childhood, or what, that wasn't until you were older?
Yeah, no, we never moved. Um, I grew up on the same piece of property as my grandparents. Actually, they lived at the back and we lived at a
Oh.
house at the front. And we didn't move around much. We did a little bit of traveling, but we're mostly, yeah, mostly home. But my home environment was very creative and changed a lot. And my mom was always painting our room different colors and moving us from here to there. And then my dad would add on in the attic and add a balcony here. And then I would have a tree fort over here. It felt very transitory, but we stayed on our acre pretty much.
What did your
And never,
parents do?
my father worked at the post office. He was a bulk mail technician, just a blue collar 9 to 5, which, he just worked to support the family, but it wasn't his passion, obviously, at all. But he played music, and he painted, and he had a little wood shop.
Hmm.
He had these ornamental water wheels, and he sold them at different like nurseries around town and to farms and things. Like, he was always into different projects, creative endeavors. And he was a musician as well. So he had a little studio in our house. And my mom was just, she had me when she was 25, and I was homeschooled, and she decided, I think they sent me to preschool for a week, and she was thinking about going to work, back to work or doing something else. And she didn't like it. She wanted to be home and be a mother. And so she didn't work, but she did work very hard. Her vocation was being a mother when we were kids, and still to this day.
How did you interact with your mom growing up? Do you remember any fond memories with your mom?
Yes, many. She was very involved. Obviously, because I was homeschooled, but even outside of that, we were good friends. From the time I was little, we enjoy a lot of the same things, or we did. She really facilitated my love of art and music.
Hmm.
So, gosh, I have so many memories with her. I mean, we used to have these ladies' teas that was that we would put on at our house and invite a bunch of girls over. This is when I was, yeah, like 8 to 10 probably. And I remember setting up for those times with her and setting the table and getting all the china out and preparing, and that was sweet. And being out in the garden together. She had a big flower garden out back. And at the end of the day, before my dad got home, lots of times she'd go out there and be watering and weeding, and I'd go out and pick a bouquet, and we would just be in each other's company.
Hmm.
Yeah, reading out loud. She read out loud a lot to me. So sometimes I'd be doing my schoolwork, and she would, if it was something that was compatible with her reading out loud, she'd read to me, and I'd like work on a project. Shopping. We loved shopping together. We'd go to San Francisco, and I'd go spend like all of my hard-earned money on nice clothes. We shared that passion. Yeah, many things. Going to the health food store. One of my earliest memories is going to this place. It's still there, called Community Market, this tiny little co-op grocery store in my hometown. And they had these, it's like a substitute for chocolate. They're called carob almonds.
Hmm.
They're so yummy, and they had them in bulk. And I think it's one of my earliest memories of my mom and I, of her like snacking on the almonds, wheeling me out of the store in a little cart. It's like deja vu, because we go there so often. She loved those little carob almonds. It's so funny because it's now my favorite snack. But I was very young. I think it was before my brother was born, so like not even 4 years old.
Man, I want to taste that. I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, it's sad. They don't carry them many places anymore. It's from like the bark of a tree or something. It's supposed to be healthier than chocolate.
Is it sweet or kind of bitter?
It's not as sweet. It's has a more chalky texture.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll send you. I know where to buy them in bulk if you're interested.
Oh my goodness, you like it that much.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Um, is there something your parents said to you, like your mom or your dad, that inspire you, or I mean, it could be a positive or negative thing that stuck with you into your adulthood?
I mean, many things. I feel like they tried to instill a lot of wisdom in me while they had the chance while I was home. I remember my dad telling me, because I was so interested in music and loved playing music, and I liked drawing and English and other things, but music was my main focus. And when I was in high school, I started playing with different bands, and because I grew up playing classical music, but then I started getting into playing for like local little rock bands and more experimental music. And I remember him saying to me, you know, if you want, Odessa, if you want to make a living as a musician, you really need to learn to write your own songs, like develop that skill. And he told me that when I was young. I think I was 14 or 15, and I hadn't even thought of what my life was going to be, really. You know, I was just following what I enjoyed doing. But I thought about that a lot, and as I've gotten older, that has become very true. And I now, you know, am a musician and write songs, and that was just a little piece of advice that I wasn't even asking him, but he gave me, and it has stuck with me. And I thought about it a lot, and that, you know, maybe that was like the thing that prompted me first to start writing. I don't know, but he planted the seed there, which I really appreciate.
That's interesting. Why would he say that? Or maybe, I mean, at this point, you probably have discovered it for yourself. Why is writing your own music, your own songs, um, a better way to earn your living?
Well, I guess it's not a better or worse way. I mean, there's so many pathways as a musician and an artist, but if you write your own material, you have a lot more. I mean, you're sort of head of your own ship. You can
Right. Okay.
care, you know, it's yours, and you can go into the world with that. And there's opportunities that come from that, and you don't have to split it with a bunch of people or talk to this person, that person, you know. It's just something that, yeah, in the musical world, again, there's a lot of different pathways, but if you have ownership over your own music, it can, you know, it's a good thing.
What do you find hardest about writing your own music?
I don't find the writing part of it hard necessarily, like the actual act of it. I think I think the in-betweens can be challenging. If I'm not, if I'm feeling sort of uninspired, I hate to use that, sounds very cliche, but you know, I go through times where I don't feel like writing or have a harder time focusing. And I've always been like that, you know, it's definitely a cycle. Those times are very hard mentally, because I feel I'll be very critical of myself and rough on myself for not being able to just write, you know. And then I have to remember it's just a combination of the discipline of it, but then also really letting go and just living life.
Yeah.
And you think like I've been doing this for, you know, sorry about that. I've been doing this for quite a while, but it's still something that I come up against and have to remind myself, like, it's okay, you'll write again. You know, instead of just, yeah. So the writing part again isn't hard. I love playing music and I love playing my instrument, but I would say the in-between times can be challenging.
What causes those times? Is it like when life's chaotic or if there's stuff going on personally? When do you find that those times happen most where you have this lull?
Yeah, I would say just um, life getting not in the way because life is the whole thing, but when, I might have things happening in my personal life or with a loved one or um, just responsibilities of life, bill, just things, my car breaking down, like whatever it is that you have to take care of. And when those things pile up, it feels like a room with too much stuff. It's like, oh, I feel overwhelmed. And then I don't feel like there's a ceiling for me, like room for me to just be. And
Hmm.
yeah,
Is
but sometimes the overwhelming times music is like a medicine and then that's like an outlet, but not all the time.
hmm.
I don't know.
Is that what do you think out of the music you've written identifies most of you? Is there a song or a piece that you've played that has really to you is like that's my heart, like that's who I am?
Oh, that's a very sweet question. Mm, I don't think there's one. I'm trying to think back. Yeah, I don't think there's just one. I feel like I have like all of us, there's many different sides to my who I am and perspectives. And I think when I'm writing, sometimes it's accesses a certain part of myself and then more vulnerable and then a more
Hmm.
playful, but they're all just parts of me. So I yeah, I wish I had a better answer, but I don't think there's really one. I think I can, if I don't go back a lot and listen to music, but probably if I did, there's certain songs and albums that are representative of a certain time in my life. And sometimes some of those times were in my mind, like a little, maybe a happy time or like a sad time or this time or that time. But I wouldn't say that any of them represents me more than another.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe do you have like a favorite or one that some that you really are fond of? Though it sounds like you don't really listen to your stuff too much, so maybe not.
Well, I do sometimes. I've definitely I remember a couple years ago, the first year of the pandemic, I was driving to my mom's place. She lives up north, just to my family's, as we were all trying to find our places here. So I drove, I drove the Big Sur route. And so I drove along the ocean and it was a long drive. And I just made a point to stop at all the vistas. I was like, I have all the time, just gonna stop at each one. And I had a CD of my very first little collection of songs I'd made with my friend Bo in Nashville. And it was just him and I was pretty shy about singing because I just had played violin mostly up until that point as a side person or hadn't really explored my own voice in that way. And I was listening to that CD that I had, and I really like those songs a lot. I had so much fun listening to them, and yeah, I enjoy them. I don't know if anyone else would because it's like a teenager, it's like such a young version of myself. But I thought they were great. It's like I don't know. There was something really like it's like watching an old movie, just so nostalgic.
Yeah.
It made me love it even more. It's like I like that, little sprout of a person and the music we're making back then.
How do you think your music's changed since then?
Um, it's just been I've been influenced by a lot of different things and the more you play your instrument, you get acquainted with it and find out new ways to express it, sound and yourself. And the musicians that I play with always have a big influence on me and that I listen to. And I spend a lot of time at home just, sitting with my guitar and my amp. I love to like find a little window perch and sit and play. And just over the years, like you just start discovering new sounds and things. And then it's really fun, I think, because I never know what's going to come out. And so, yeah, over the years, I would never have been able to predict. Like I released an album, I guess year before last, called Lullabies for Adults and Children. I never would have thought I would have written a record like that. Like I didn't have a plan for that, but it's just sort of an accumulation of like influences, I think, and experiences and like my skill as a musician and what I want to say at the time. So I guess it's just evolved with me.
Yeah.
Through the years I've gone through and who I've become and am becoming as a person. And wherever I'm at, my music is pretty personal. I'm not really the kind of, I don't take on like a different persona. I always sort of envy people like that, like David Bowie and like that you could just, or David Byrne, or David Byrne is really just always himself. Well, no, but he puts on costumes and sort of like gets into characters, and that's so not me. I've tried and it's just, that's not who I am. So if I go back and listen to music, or I just feel like my music is like an open book, like a journal, not a journal, it sounds kind of cheesy, but just like, if I listen, I know what was going on in life. Like it's I've really taken my surroundings and my relationships and people and what I'm feeling and put it into the music. So it's kind of like placeholders for me. And it evolves that way. Like who I was last year, I'll go through experiences and new things, and I'll be the same person, but I'll have something different to say next year or month or week, whatever. That makes sense.
What do you think's been like the happiest season of your life so far?
Oh, that's probably early childhood. Is that a fair answer? That's like,
Why early childhood? That's a good answer. Why?
I just was, I was very blessed to grow up in a, loving households, and was allowed a lot of free time to explore the world and explore in my head and outside and in nature and music and playing with my siblings and hanging out with my grandparents. It was very wholesome. And I remember feeling so peaceful, and just like dusk every night was my favorite hour, just when everything was golden and I could smell my mom cooking dinner, and then I'd go sit and wait on the porch for my dad to come ride his bike home from work. Like it was just sort of when I look back on it, it feels like an old reel of a dream. And being in the garden, and it's all the things I still love and find joy in to this day, and we experienced, I experienced a lot of hardship in my teenage years, and things got challenging, but that time was very pure. But I was also a child, so you're looking at the world so differently. But since that time, I mean, since being a little kid, I've had experienced gorgeous seasons, but they are very seasonal, which has been followed by difficulty, and then another gorgeous time. And it's just like, how it is, life. It's just the cycle of it all.
It's continuous. Yeah. There's always new things to do and think about. Um, when you were talking about your teen years, what did you find hard when you were a teenager? Was it like just reaching puberty, or was it challenging times in friendships or who you were?
Well, when I was a teenager, my father became ill with a pretty rare disease, and that just changed everything. And so, yeah, life, there was a kind of a shadow cast, if you will.
Mm.
And he passed when I was 20. And so that those 4 years were, he was kind of in and out of the hospital, and he would be okay one year and then not so great the next. So, and at that point we were all homeschooled, my family, and I think my siblings, most all of them, I guess the two, I have four brothers and a sister. And so it goes me, I'm the oldest, two boys, my sister, and the two youngest. And when my father became ill, my younger siblings went to school. So I don't think my mom could handle it all, and my dad.
Right.
So just, things changed, and my relationship with life changed. And then losing him was obviously just very difficult. And anyone who's experienced any kind of loss understands what that is. It doesn't have to be a parent, but it's something natural, it happens in life. But it just changed my whole world.
Hmm.
And so I describe it like this sometimes. I like to think of things visually, and if I think about life before that event, it's sort of like when you're looking out at the ocean and there's a horizon line and you see above it, right? If you see like above the dark water, and it's just like, like the sun's shining, and there's like just light, and the water spray, and it's just this like lightness above in the sky. And then you go underneath that line, and then you're in the ocean and kind of the dark waters, and it's still as beautiful, right? It's still as magical, it's still as alive, but you're underwater, you're like in the depths. And I feel like my life before was above the horizon, and life after was below. And you can still see all the light and the beauty above. It's just very different. And it's just through a different lens. So, now, of course, as the years have gone by, years have passed, and I have taken, I see a lot of the beauty in it now. And even then I saw it, but yes, in answer to your question, that's sort of why that my teenage years were challenging.
What,
Just,
how did you deal with the loss of your dad, with grief?
well, I hadn't written a lot of my own music before that. A little bit. I had moved to Nashville when I was 18, 2 years before he passed. And I was playing violin in different like folk bands and just more like old time Americana stuff. But I didn't really grow up listening to that kind of music necessarily. But I sort of learned to write in that style, and I joined a few bands, and I was writing songs, but they weren't really mine. It wasn't like from my heart. It was like sort of more formulaic. And after he passed, I moved. I guess at the time I was living in North Carolina. I was with a group that was based out of there. And after he passed, I moved into a little house by myself. This really sweet girl in town, she was leaving to go get her master's, and her house was empty for 6 months. And she lived in this beautiful little home she owned. And she essentially, she charged me so little. She was like, take my house. And she was just an angel, because I didn't actually know a lot of people. I didn't know a lot of people in that town because I'd been touring so much. So she was like one of two friends. Anyway, those 6 months after he was gone, I spent in that house. I took a lot of baths. I was touring and working as well, but I would come back there, and I took this, my dad had a 16-track digital Yamaha recorder, and I spent like morning to night recording things and trying out things on that device. And that helped me, just be able to get my emotions going, flowing. I wasn't even writing about what I had experienced. I was just making things, and that just helped. Probably helped my energy just keep moving, right? Would go on a lot of long runs, talk to my mom on the phone. I did tour a bit, but I will say that I think it kind of took me a while to totally acknowledge. Well, it took me a while to grieve, and honestly, you sort of continue grieving. It's not like one day it's over. You just learn how to manage it better. So I probably went through a period, if I'm being honest, where I, kind of stuffed my feelings a bit and had to deal with them a couple years later. It's like an actual, not denial, but, just sort of this, I'm fine. And then, and then you crumble a bit. But music was very integral and just helping me through.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a very powerful tool, and of course, close friends and my family and all of that. But
When you were describing the ocean scenario, do you still feel kind of like that you see life from the sense of under the water, like you were describing, or do you feel like it's come back to sort of the surface?
Yeah, I feel like I definitely come up more often. For sure. Yeah, I do feel like that. There's, again, especially with music, or if I'm like in a creative flow or something, I feel like that's the time, or I'm, experiencing a lot of love and whatever, all the things that make us feel alive as human beings. But I definitely, yeah, that place is there. I don't feel like I'm just always underwater. I hope that didn't sound that way, after the event. But it is, I think it's a bit more challenging to stay there though, for
Yeah.
me. I get pretty down sometimes, and but I have tools that I use to get back up. I like this summer was, I wasn't on the road much, and I was doing a lot of writing here, and I started horseback riding again, because I rode as a kid, and I had a horse when I was young, but I hadn't ridden in years, and I did have kind of a difficult spring, and I was kind of feeling a little low, and I could feel myself kind of going there, and I really took initiative, and I was like, all right, I think I'm going to try riding again. And I did, and it inspired me so much, just in my whole life. I would only do it once a week, but it was like, it like broke open, it just like helped me mentally like break through to that higher place.
Hmm.
Mhm.
What?
Again, sorry, my sister's calling.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask when you were talking about what makes life beautiful, what makes life beautiful for you as an individual, and what gives you meaning as you face these hardships, as well as, these times when things are good and then times are bad, and that is kind of the cycle that just keeps going. How do you, what gives meaning to you?
I would say I have a very strong faith, and what gives, I don't know if it's meaning but what gives me, if I feel like like in the physical realm, I'm sort of losing it, right? Or feeling like I don't know what's going on. It really helps me to go to a more spiritual place. And I really believe that we're all put on the earth for a specific purpose. And we all have gifts, like you have a gift that you like, language and documenting and journaling and writing, I'm assuming, and literature and all these things. I don't know you that well, but I'm assuming this, but you have a passion to reach into other people's lives and share those stories, and not everyone has your gift. I don't have it. I would be too shy to reach out to someone and ask, can I ask about your life and share? Which I think it's so beautiful. So when I feel down or like, what's my purpose? What's the meaning of it all? I try to rest in that kind of broader, bigger picture. Like, it's okay. You don't, sometimes I don't even understand the purpose or the meaning, but I really believe that there's something that I'm here for, that every person is here for. And, I guess, does that answer your question?
Yeah. I guess, how does when you say spiritually, how does that play into that for you? Do you find that like a comfort, or is that kind of where you anchor in times when you feel really rocked by circumstances?
Yeah, I just feel like it's more of a comfort to me, for me, and I also, I'm very blessed. I have deep friendships and, deep love in my life. And that gives me purpose and meaning to be involved and care for other people. That I'm not always good at doing that. I can be very selfish, but I value that. And when I'm feeling weak, I'm very lucky and blessed to have people in my life that I can turn to, and we help each other. It's like we remind each other of our purpose and what it all means, or figure it out with each other.
What person in your life right now do you think you look up to the most?
Um, I would say today, like in the last few days, it's my grandmother who passed away year before last. She was 90, she's almost 90. She lived a good long life, but this is funny. My pinky nail is the only nail I can really keep long. And I tried growing out all my other nails and I was like, oh, I feel so feminine and pretty, like my hands. And then I went to go record something the other day and had to bite all of them off. I was like, oh no, except for the pinky. And then I was thinking yesterday, my grandma, I mean, she never did like a lick of drugs in her life. She got drunk one time when she was 14 with a girl. Like, she was very conservative in that way. But she would always joke that she had this like crack nail, because she liked to do cocaine every once in a while. It was like this hilarious, like cute little joke. Anyway, she was such a graceful lady, and she went through a lot in her life. And I really, when I think back, and of course, she's gone now and I wish I could ask her these things, but she always maintained this like baseline of grace. Like she was just grandma, and she floated through. She had this elegant presence. And she didn't hide the way she was feeling. She was very fiery, very opinionated, but the way she handled herself and maneuvered through life, like I look up to her. I always have and always will.
Do you mean, when you say grace, was it like a stability almost? She was just stayed the same?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe I crave that because I feel like I'm all over the place. I strive to stay the same, but some days I'm like, I don't know who this person is, but she always maintained that, like, no matter what her mood was, it was still like
Mm.
she is a pillar, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't know why I've been thinking about the crack nail, brought it up because I texted my aunt, her daughter, and my cousins, and I was like, remember those guys? And so we've been talking about her the last few days. So I've just been like thinking about her.
Why do you
Yeah.
bite your nails during recording sessions? Are you nervous?
No, I wasn't nervous, but I had no nail clippers and they were too long, and I was like, I don't want
No,
to.
you just like time to get rid of them.
Time to go, and I didn't have time to find nail clippers, so I bit them off and put them in my pocket and threw them away.
That doesn't hurt. Ooh.
That's great. But my hands are clean. Anyway, let's not talk about that anymore.
What do you think you'd title a book if you wrote it about your life?
Ooh. Oh gosh, I don't know. I think of funny names all the time. I can't think of any now. I thought, like, my name means it's Odessa, and it's derived from the Odyssey, the Greek mythology, and it means the long and endless journey. Maybe I would title it that. I've thought that before.
Wow. I didn't even know it meant that. That's actually kind of cool though, based on how you've described some of your life and how you
Yeah.
see the world in a very artistic sense.
Yeah, I don't know if your name has anything to do with the trajectory of your life, but I feel like mine has had a little bit of an influence for sure.
Why did because your name is really like unique. How did your parents come up with it? They just liked the name or?
Yeah, I think they did. Well, we had a map of the world that was a shower curtain, and that we had like a clawfoot tub, and I remember this. They replaced it when I was little, but I don't know. My mom says she was like taking a bath. She loved taking baths, and then she was looking and just saw the name and thought it looked pretty. And they looked up where it was, and it's a city that it's like it's in the Ukraine, and it's on the water. And I think they just liked how it sounded and how it aesthetically how it looked. And I guess I'll have to ask her again. I haven't asked her in a while.
Well, I want to ask you one more question because I know you've given me your time. What what do you think is the biggest assumption people make about you?
I don't know. Did you have an assumption about me? I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, I would maybe say that people think I'm very serious, but I don't know if that's true.
Hmm.
I'm pretty goofy. Or I like to laugh and just be silly and be fun, but I don't know. I don't, I'd have to think about that.
Well, that's good. Then that means you probably don't think much about what people think.
I really don't care. I mean, I do care, but I don't at the same time. So I remember I guess I've in the past been called cold. I know that, but that was a long time ago because I think sometimes right at first I can be shy. So I won't talk a lot, and that could be perceived as being like a little bit, whatever, but that's not true. It's just shyness, you know.
Yeah. No, I'm similar. I come across kind of quiet at first too. But it's just because for me, it's like you need a level of trust to kind of be fun. And
Yeah, I
if
feel like
if you don't really know people, it's kind of like, well, I don't know if you're gonna think I'm crazy. So I want to know that you're okay with me first.
I feel like that's like an onion, like, okay, one layer and then all right, and then next, and then once you get down to the core, it's like, okay,
Yeah,
but that takes
woo! Yeah, exactly. I feel the same way. Um, and to be honest, I think it's only a few people probably in my life that I feel comfortable doing that. Just being completely, it's not that I'm not myself, but I don't show every part, I think, to everybody.
Yes, I relate to that very much.
Because I think, yeah, I think you need a safe space. Um, and some people are, and then some people they're, you just form attachments enough that it's only for certain subject areas or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, Odessa,
Yeah.
I wanna thank you. I mean, this has been super fun, and you are really, really sweet to talk to. So thank you so much.
Likewise, I was very touched that you reached out.
Oh,
Thank you.
you're very welcome.